Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Did you know that for only $27 per month, you can now gain unlimited access to more than $2,000 worth of resources, courses, and video archives, all built to help you build a better business, be a better leader, and live a happier life as a small firm architect? And we're adding more every month. Learn more about EntreArchitect Academy at EntreArchitect.com. You're listening to EntreArchitect Podcast, and this is episode 175. Welcome back to the EntreArchitect Podcast. My name is Mark R. LePage, and this is the podcast dedicated to a successful life as a small firm architect. Whether you have plans to someday start your own firm, whether you're in the process of launching a startup, or you might be an experienced small firm architect just trying to make a difference, this podcast is for you. My goal is to inspire you to build a better business so that you may pursue your purpose with passion and live the life of your dreams. I'm back with another episode from our podcast series called The Entrepreneur Architect, where I interview you, members of the EntreArchitect community. I want to know your story. I want to give you an opportunity to share some of your knowledge. You have a story. We all have a story about how we were inspired to pursue a career in this profession, a story about the people who influenced us to get to this place in our lives, a story about how we became entrepreneur architects. So I want to hear your story. Email me at podcast@entrearchitect.com and let me know that you want to be part of this series. This week at the EntreArchitect podcast, I'm speaking with Michael Kilkelly, entrepreneur architect. This episode of EntreArchitect podcast is supported by our platform sponsors, FreshBooks, NCARB, BQE Software, and ARCAT. And I'm going to share more about these great companies and organizations later in the show, but as we get started here, just take a quick note to schedule some time this week to go visit each one of them and let them know that their support is appreciated by us, the EntreArchitect community. Michael Kilkelly, welcome to EntreArchitect podcast.
Hey, Mark, it's great to be here.
It's great having you here. Michael is a principal at Space Command, a architecture and consulting firm in Middletown, Connecticut. He's also the founder of ArchSmarter, ARCH Smarter.com, a website dedicated to helping architects and designers work smarter, not harder. I'd love to get into that a little bit. It's a cool place to go visit. So if you haven't been there, go check it out at ArchSmarter.com. Michael has also received his Bachelor of Architecture from Norwich University and a Master's of Science in Design and Computation from MIT. Previously, Michael was an associate at Gary Partners in LA, in Los Angeles, California, where he worked on several high-profile design projects, including New York by Gary and the Guggenheim Abu Dhabi. Some pretty cool projects. That must have been fun. Michael writes regularly about design and technology at ArchSmarter, Arch Daily, and at Architect Magazine. So you may recognize his name if you frequent any of those places. So Michael, let's get into this a little bit. I shared a little bit about you. I want to start just like I always start this show here. With your origin story. Take a minute or two and go back to where you discovered architecture, what inspired you to become an architect, and give us your story. We'll go from there.
Okay, thanks, Mark. So I think, I got into architecture probably from, like a lot of people do. I loved playing with Legos as a kid. I liked to draw, and I had a hunch that architecture was kind of the profession for me, but I didn't know any architects. I didn't know, other than like the Brady Bunch or anything like that. I didn't really know what an architect did, on a daily basis. So other than going to the library, taking a drafting class in high school, I didn't have much exposure to the profession. But again, I felt like, I had a good left brain, right brain kind of combination that doing the technical and the creative, which is what I imagined architects did, that would be, a good career path for me. And, fortunately, that's been the case. But it wasn't until I got into, to architecture school. I did my bachelor's at Norwich University in Vermont. And, then I realized, oh, okay, like this is, all right, we're in it. This is it. This is did not what I totally expected, though I didn't really know, again, what to expect. So I did, a 5-year Bachelor of Architecture at Norwich, and that's when I started. This was in the early 90s. I was there from 90 to 95. Computers were just starting to get introduced. We did a lot of hand drafting. We built a lot of physical models, and we had a computer class. And so that was it. I kept doing hand drawings, and it came to my my 5th year thesis. Again, I was really interested in technology, but it was pretty primitive back then. We were still using DOS for the most part. And my thesis project was, I produced, it was set at Burning Man out in Nevada desert. So,
cool.
It was this little kind of small project, but I was making physical models, hand drawing, and then I had started getting into rendering and animation using 3D Studio, which was still fairly new at that point. So it was kind of this mix of media between handmade and digital. So it was really fun doing that. Now, after I graduated, I worked for a firm here in Connecticut for a couple of years. And again, I've always throughout my career had this interest in design and technology, and I've been, I think, throughout trying to figure out how to do both of them in some way, shape, or form. So I was working as an intern architect, and again doing a lot of rendering, still interested, exploring computers. And at that point, I wanted to go back to school. I knew I wanted to go back, and I went to MIT, and I did their it's a Master of Science in Architecture Studies, and then focused in design and computation. And that was just a great experience.
What does that mean, design and computation?
So it's a very wide kind of program at MIT. So it's really up to you to define what that means. So I was taking, you can take courses, through any department. You can take courses at Harvard. So I was doing design studios. I was taking music classes, and the only requirement really is to do a thesis at the end. So you can go as far afield as you want. You just have to kind of bring it back home and do your thesis. And so you could really explore things. And that was as rapid prototyping was kind of starting to become more and more prevalent. And I was there from 97 to 99. And what I was interested in though was looking at how we as architects could do our work more efficiently, be more effective. And so, my kind of research was really into like construction drawings and how we actually go through and create them and look at alternate ways that we could develop documentation and tools that would support that. So after MIT, I worked in the Boston area for a few firms. I was working for Martha Schwartz, who was a landscape architect, and so doing design work, but also taking care of their computers and those sorts of things. And I worked for a internet startup. So this was around Internet 1.0, and that was great. So they were developing project management software for construction projects, basically. And so as with most companies around that time, it was we had a year run, and then things faded out. So then I worked for another kind of medium-sized firm, Ad Inc., in the Boston area.
I have some friends there.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
And so around that time, I had been interested in moving out of the Boston. Like I grew up in New England. I lived there pretty much all my life. I wanted to go somewhere else. And an opportunity came up at Frank Gehry's firm. So they were looking for, again, somebody with architectural experience, but was willing to, also had technical experience and wanted to work on projects, but have more of a kind of technical administration role. Like, so manage a lot of their drawing sets, be able to automate, optimize the workflows essentially. So, again, I've always gone back and forth between the technical and design sides. So for me, this was the perfect opportunity. So here I could do both things, work on projects, but also at a scale and a complexity that would be pretty interesting. So 2005, my wife and I moved out to LA. And I was there at Gehry's firm for 7 years to 2012. We had, two of our kids were born out in LA, and they're still hardcore Dodgers fans. I can't get them to root for the Red Sox as much as I try. So around that, again, we had 2 kids. All of our family was all back east, so we wanted to move back at some point. And so my wife got an opportunity, teaching opportunity here in Connecticut. So that seemed like a good way to kind of make our way back to New England. And around that time too, I'd been thinking, that I did want to go out on my own. I wanted to kind of start my firm. I survived through the recession in 2008 and 2009, but I saw a lot of really talented people who, had been with the firm for a long time, and they got laid off. There just wasn't enough work. And Gehry's firm at that point, we were up to 200 people at one point, and then we shrunk down to 100. And so, and I think those of us who survived through that a lot, have similar stories of just how kind of work dried up all of a sudden. So seeing that, I realized like having a full-time job isn't always the most secure approach. Again, it was people who had spent their whole career at the firm, and it just was through circumstance. They were let go, and then they had to go find something else. So that was really difficult to kind of live through and see it, but it made me think about, well, what do I want to do, for my career after this? And I became a lot more interested in business, and started reading up, all with the intent of at some point starting my own company, be it either a architecture firm or kind of consulting company or something else altogether. So this, again, when my wife got the job and we moved to Connecticut, that seemed like a perfect opportunity to start afresh, start on my own.
Were you licensed at that time when you came back?
I was,
east?
yes.
Where along
did, yeah.
the timeline did you get licensed?
So that's a great story. I started IDP when I graduated from college. So I got 2 years of IDP done. And then I went back to school and sort of got off the rails. So it wasn't until I started working actually at Gary's firm, and it was when I kind of finished up all my IDP paperwork, and then I started taking my exams right after my first son was born in 2006, and then finished them in I think before my second son was born, 2009. So I was around 36 years old. So it was a long process.
Yeah.
I think I needed the time constraint of having kids to make me sit down and do it. Because I don't know what I was doing with my time, before kids. I had all the time in the world.
Exactly.
But just didn't actually sit down and get it done.
It's amazing how much you can get done when you focus because you have other priorities.
Exactly. And I think that was it. I needed that pressure, especially too. I had, my kid number 2 coming. Like I had to get it done. There was no question about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I did come back east, I was licensed already.
So you came back east and you decided this was a good time to start your own thing.
Right. Yeah. So when I left Gary's office, I had a really good relationship with them, and I approached them about potentially doing some consulting for them, and working remotely. And that seemed like a good bridge into, working for myself. So I would have to manage them. They would be a client, not an employer, and again, be able to work with them remotely, handle them. But I already knew the work that they were doing. I knew, what my role would be. So that's actually been great. So that's been consistent in the 5 years since I've left. I've been doing consulting work for them. And I go out there about once a month, and still have a very good relationship with them.
And they don't have any East Coast base, right?
Correct. Yeah, they're just their office. There's one office that's in LA, and that's it. There's about a little over 100 people there still, and they no plans obviously to open up any other offices.
And is that the bulk of your work? Working with them?
It varies. I think initially it was, and again, having one client isn't really sustainable. So I've been working on developing other consulting projects and clients as well, and then also building out ArcSmarter as its own kind of sustainable business, and then also kind of as a third thing, getting some local architectural projects here in kind of the central Connecticut area. So there's sort of a mix of different project types, client types, and sort of business models thrown in there.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story, and you can see the progression that you had. Obviously, this interest in technology and architecture, and that thread runs through your whole story, and you've landed in some pretty prestigious places, doing some prestigious work. So you've must have had goals set for that. Is there a specific goal that you can share with us that sort of you had this goal, you achieved it, and the process that you followed to achieve that goal?
Yeah, I think for me, apart from becoming licensed, that was always the big goal. But I had always wanted to start my own firm, and that I didn't really know what that was going to look like. So I can't, like, I come from a sort of working class family in the suburbs of Boston. My dad was a machinist. And so he was always kind of, putting the work in. And I remember thinking as a kid, like, he should open his own machine shop. Why doesn't he do that? And now I know, like, oh yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah,
like that takes a lot of work. But that seemed to be, a way to that you're building something of your own apart from, the work you're doing, but you're building an organization, a culture, and so forth. So for me, that had always been a goal somewhere kind of in the back of my mind. So finally being able to do it, and, now 5 years out, it's still a work in progress. Like I think of my business in particular, it's kind of like a design project, and I'm sort of in the schematic phase, but I'm hoping to be moving into DD pretty soon. But that has been, a big accomplishment, just getting this far.
Do you have it all planned, or did you take the jump and then sort of just go as you proceed?
Yeah, it's not planned.
Yeah.
I think was it with writers, there's people who pantsers or plotters. So you either do it by the seat of your pants, or you plot it out step by step. So I'm a pantser as far as the business goes. But
Very
I
funny.
do. That's something I know that I need to work on and get some more structure and planning kind of into it, because again, I've been doing this kind of on my own for 5 years, but I feel like it's hard to do a lot of different things. Like I need to focus to get some efficiencies and systems in place, so that I can grow the business and continue to make it sustainable.
Let's take a quick break here to say thank you to our platform sponsors here at EntreArchitect: ARCAT, FreshBooks, NCARB, and BQE Software. You already know all about ARCAT and their free BIM objects and their CAD details and their specifications and product information, all free, ready for you to use. Well, today I want to share something new from ARCAT. It's called Charrette. Charrette is a tool for sharing and collaborating with your colleagues and clients online in real time. You can upload photos and files, share specs and product information directly from the ARCAT database, as well as from other sources on the internet. I've been playing with Charrette in beta for a while now, and it's really cool, and now it's available to you. I encourage you to go check it out. Visit ARCAT online and click the Charrette icon right there on the homepage. And like everything offered at ARCAT, Charrette is a free tool for us small firm architects too. Learn more at EntreArchitect.com/ARCAT. 192 hours. You wish you had that much free time? That works out to about 2 business days every month. And when you're a small firm architect using FreshBooks cloud accounting software, that's the amount of administration time that you could save in 2017. That's time that you can spend doing the things you love, like being an architect. FreshBooks makes it simple to send invoices, post your expenses automatically, track your time for your whole team by project, and get organized with reports, communication, and notifications. Sign up for a free 30-day unrestricted trial and get ready for the simplest way to be more productive, organized, and most importantly, get paid faster. Visit EntreArchitect.com/FreshBooks to access FreshBooks for free. And be sure to enter EntreArchitect in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Do you know someone in your firm who's always dreamed of getting licensed, but was unable to complete the experience requirements? Well, maybe that person's you. Now you can get back on track with NCARB's new AXP portfolio. With this option, seasoned professionals can complete the Architectural Experience Program, the AXP, formerly known as the IDP, by submitting an online portfolio. Along with meeting your state's education and examination requirements, the portfolio will help you and your employees get one step closer to becoming a licensed architect. Learn more about NCARB's AXP portfolio at EntreArchitect.com/NCARB. One of the most often requested resources here at EntreArchitect is project management software. How do we keep our projects and our people organized while we grow as entrepreneur architects. BQE Software, an AIA Advantage partner and the makers of ArchiOffice, will show us how. ArchiOffice is the only office and project management software designed specifically for architects. It will help us manage people and projects and allow us to focus on designing great architecture. Whether you're working remotely or on site, ArchiOffice allows you to monitor the status of your projects and tasks and send out invoices in an accurate and timely manner. EntreArchitect podcast listeners can get a fully functional 15-day trial of ArchiOffice today at entrearchitect.com/BQE. ARCAT, FreshBooks, NCARB, and BQE Software, please visit our platform sponsors today and thank them for supporting you, the EntreArchitect community. So Arc Smarter is all about working smarter, not harder. Was one of the and we haven't really gotten into what that is yet. So we'll talk about that in a little while. But was that sort of the inspiration to start Arc Smarter? So knowing that that's something that you need to do as well, why not build a platform around it while you're learning?
It is, yeah. And so, I mean, actually, the genesis of Arc Smarter, a lot of that came out of working at Frank Gehry's office. And I was working on a big project. I was putting in a lot of time, like 60, 70-hour weeks, working weekends. And again, I had a small child at home, my wife who was also working. And it got to a point where, I was working, we had a deadline coming up. I think we had a DD deadline. So again, my role kind of as the computer person, the technical person on the project, I had to do a lot of the cleanup and, we would finish up drawings. And this is kind of a little known secret, but at Gary's office, they use CATIA for a lot of the 3D work, but they also use a whole lot of AutoCAD. And so my job, they were producing a massive set of drawings. I had to, take all the PDFs, package them up, get all the AutoCAD drawings ready to be shipped out. And it was just taking an enormous amount of time. And we'd finish our deadline up at like 6 on Friday, and then I'd be spending, 7 or 8 hours after that just kind of doing the cleanup. And, I realized, again, I'm getting home at 3 a.m, my eyes are red. My wife is waking up, looking at me like, you're a mess. Yeah. You got to figure out some way to do this.
And so 2 little babies.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just needed to figure out a better way to get this work done. Like the work wasn't going to change, but I needed to approach it a lot smarter. And so I started looking at ways that I could automate a lot of that, the tedious stuff that I needed to do, where I was just sitting there clicking a mouse because I didn't have a better way to do it. And so I started, learning how to program and looking at more efficient workflows and breaking things down kind of step by step, and then trying to make small gradual improvements over this one particular workflow. And so after doing that for a few weeks, this process that would take me 8 hours, I got it down to like 1 hour. And then since I was able to outline it, I could hand it off to somebody else and say, do this, run this script, do that. So I could remove myself out of that process. And I found that for me, that was liberating because I could save, that was my time that I was getting back. But also I became the person in the office who could make other people more efficient by developing these workflows, writing these scripts, thinking about things from an effectiveness point of view. And so, when the recession did come, I was largely, safe because again, I brought a lot of value to the firm in terms of the work I could do, but also how I could help other people do their work. And so, when it was time to leave, I really wanted to kind of, build a platform for talking about like working more efficiently, working smarter for architects and engineers. Again, because when we're in school, we're not really taught about how to value your time. The studio culture, at least when I was in school, was, pulling all-nighters, like working constantly. There was no discussion of work-life balance or anything like that. So I think we come from that culture where you can just throw as much time, as you have at a project. let's just do that. That's the way you make, good architecture. So ArcSmarter came at it kind of in reaction to that in a lot of ways. So we can look at, how we work, how we do things, but approach it a different way so that we can maintain that work-life balance. We're not always, working weekends and late nights, and again, a lot of it was for me. I wanted to get home and have dinner with my family. So ArcSmarter became a way to kind of do that learning, out loud in public, and just start that discussion a little bit more.
So are you delivering that information as training or tools or both?
Both, actually. So it started, ArcSmarter started as a blog. So I just started writing about these particular issues, with a bent towards technology. And then I released a course on about writing, programming Revit. So writing Revit macros. And then I developed some Revit specific plugins, and then added some more courses to it. So it's evolved. I started by building an audience, and then kind of seeing what the audience wanted, more or less.
Yeah, very interesting. Was there, either at ArcSmarter or as you're starting your own firm or moving out to work for Gary, was there a specific aha moment in your life that you said, "Oh, this is a game changer"? So can you talk about that and how that aha moment you capitalized on it and turned it into something that changed your life?
Yeah, I think, starting with my frustrations working at Gary's office, and again, just the time, a lot of times the inefficiency, developing, a way based, came down to learning how to program, getting under the hood of the software, being able to use it more effectively. That was one aha moment where I said, oh, okay, this is, there's something to this, and seeing how that kind of impacted my career at that office. But I think once I started ArcSmarter, started writing about those topics, and then having, feedback from people on the outside who, were also frustrated and looking for solutions, again, to work smarter. They didn't want to be spending all that time at the office. How can we do this? How can we be more effective? So I think it was a feedback loop, because I am my own audience in the sense that I'm a practicing architect. I'm looking for ways to work smarter, and hearing back from other people okay, I'm onto something here. This is, worth pursuing. So it keeps coming back. And, the more kind of the audience grows, the more feedback I get. It just makes me want to do, more, look deeper, figure stuff out more so.
Yeah, like you said before, it's so culturally built into us as architects to just keep working hard.
Right.
And
yep.
it doesn't even come to your senses that, well, maybe there's a way that we could work smarter, that we can create tools or create some sort of workflow, or even have the time to think about that or develop those workflows to get the work done, because we're always doing the work.
No, and that you're absolutely right, Mark. And I think that it's knowing that a discussion about how we're going to do the work is not, time wasted, that if you can think about it objectively, look at it, it doesn't impact what the work is necessarily. Again, though, I think in school it's all, the amount of time equals how great it is, and that's not really the case. So you can take those two apart. But yeah, having that discussion, having that frame of mind about the process is really valuable.
Yeah, it's like taking the time to sharpen the saw.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or was it Abe Lincoln? Was it?
Yeah.
How long? He had 8 hours to cut down a tree.
Yeah.
Spent 6 hours sharpening his axe.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot easier to cut it down with a sharp saw.
Yes. Yep. Very true.
So what do you think makes you or your firm unique? What's one thing that makes you different than everybody else?
So within ArcSmarter, there's a lot of people who write about technology. There's a lot of people who develop training. There's companies like lynda.com, and you have Pluralsight. I think for me, and again, I run ArcSmarter, by myself. My zone of genius, if you will, is kind of taking complex subjects or workflows, breaking them down into like smaller, manageable bites, and then using kind of humor and narrative like as a teaching tool. I like to write about technology, but from a humanistic point of view. So what does it mean for you, as an architect, if you're going to use technology? It's not always about like the latest gizmo or gadget or anything like that, but how does it affect you and what impact does it have on your life? So I try to approach the work I do with ArcSmarter from that perspective.
Yeah, we should talk more. Because I would love to bring more of what you're doing to EntreArchitect, because we do a lot of talking about those kind of things, and we're building systems and giving members in the academy resources like that. But we might be able to bring some of ArcSmarter's content and tools to the EntreArchitect community.
Yeah, let's talk.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
So let's get into some quick questions.
Sure.
At what age did you decide to become an architect?
I think I was probably like 12, 13, at that. I remember I did a report. We had like a science fair at school. I think it was 7th grade. And I did a report on, being an architect. And I still have it. It's hilarious to read because it's written in hand, in like a blue on lined paper. And I have all these drawings of, people building a house. And it's really funny. And I think that, that was when I started thinking kind of architecture engineering, as a potential career path. It took me a while to actually get registered. But I'd say, right around that age.
Yeah. You should hang that up. You should frame that.
I know. I need to scan it. I have it somewhere in my garage. Yeah. I need to dig that out for
That'd
sure.
Be very cool. I have some old drawings that are in my old bedroom in my parents' house that I could point at and say, yep, that was right around when I realized that I was going to be an architect. I started designing my house.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It starts at the house.
Yeah. It's a horrible looking house. I
know.
But the intent was there.
That's okay. It's a process.
So what's your target market today? Let's do both the firm and ArcSmarter. So
for ArcSmarter, it's really architects and engineers, who are looking to want to work smarter, want to be more efficient, and that's through either training, customization of software, or consulting. For my firm, I'm a sole proprietor. I work by myself, so I'm doing residential and light commercial projects. So I really like residential projects because you're working, one-on-one with the homeowners. And I think that comes from having worked in large firms where, the client there was layers and layers of clients. So I really like the kind of small scale, the intimacy of doing residential projects.
When you're doing that type of work, are you working stipulated sum, hourly, or percentage-based fee?
I do stipulated sum. And so at least for the architecture projects, that's typically how I work. I actually use your hybrid proposal contract. So thank you for that. I really
you're welcome.
Super helpful. And then for ArcSmarter, that varies between hourly or it's kind of a product. There are products that I'm selling. So there's a little bit of mix of everything. Although I'm interested in looking at on the architecture side, bringing in some of that kind of product mentality, like productized consulting, kind of into creating, packages, design packages, if you will. Just makes it a little bit easier to have the discussion, with homeowners when there's a fixed price, as much as you can, because there's so much variability. But it's interesting to see how those, the businesses can kind of feed into each other a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. I have that happen all the time with Five Cat Studio, my firm, right, and EntreArchitect. I'm constantly taking things I learn at the firm and pushing them out through EntreArchitect. And the same thing, the things I learn with EntreArchitect with the technology side and the internet side, bringing it back to Five Cat. It's interesting how they feed one another.
And I think it's I really like that because there's synergy between, even though they're different businesses and different clients essentially. But again, yeah, you can pull back and forth, and that's one thing. For the architecture side, I've been really getting projects through kind of word of mouth and referrals. I haven't yet kind of closed the loop and brought in some of the content marketing, email marketing aspects that I use in ArcSmarter. So that's my goal for this year, is to start, having kind of both sides of the business, working at kind of a same level. And I do, again, for me, a lot of the stuff that I write about, is things that I'm dealing with on a daily basis. So there's really good feedback between those sides, and I'm sure the same thing with you, Mark.
Yeah,
as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Other than architecture and ArcSmarter, what makes you happy? What sort of hobbies or passions do you have outside of architecture?
I mentioned, I've got 3 kids now. So aside from, spending time at home with my wife and kids, they're really into soccer right now. So my oldest is 11. I've got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. So that keeps me busy probably 90% of the time. This spring has just been crazy with sports and stuff. But, for me personally, anytime I can get outside. So I really like cycling. I'm a pretty avid cyclist. I haven't done it as much this spring, but I'm hoping to get out more this summer. And then I've been practicing yoga for a while, but starting this year, I've really been taking it a lot more seriously. So I get out, try to do 2 to 3 times a week. And I find as I'm getting older, like my body's not getting any more limber. So at least like yoga helps me maintain some sort of stasis.
Yeah.
So I don't completely fall apart.
Yeah.
And then I have a long list. I imagine, like a lot of architects, I have a long list of projects around the house. So I like, most of my work is digital, but I like building stuff with my hands. So I have a workshop in my garage. I've built some furniture, and I'm starting to scale that up. So I want to rebuild my porch. I've got a tree house in the works, so stuff that I can actually physically make, just as a way to get away from the screen. So any opportunity for that, I'm all for it.
What's the best advice you ever received?
When I was finishing up my BArch thesis, one of the reviewers was John Connell, who was a founder of the Yes Tomorrow Design Build School. Yeah. And he told me, he's like, look, you can practice architecture any way you want. Now, how you make a living is a whole nother story. And for some reason that piece of advice has really stuck with me, because I think, one, it illustrates, the dichotomy that we have in school, where architecture isn't necessarily seen as a calling and not so much as a business. But also, too, like the encouragement, like, look, you can practice any way you want, but you have to make a living some way, shape, or form. And so I think trying to find, the balance between and the tension between practicing and making a living. And I think that, again, that piece of advice has changed for me over the years. Now that I'm working on my own, it's like, okay, yeah, the making a living part is really important. And it's not as easy as you would think. So how can I fit, practicing the way that I want into that and get them, working together? And then, like working at Frank Gehry's office, seeing clearly he was practicing the way he wants, and he's managed, to make a pretty successful living. So there are certainly models out there.
Yeah, but he's running a pretty decent business as well.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
because they feed one another. You can have a great firm, a practice, and it helps you build a better business. But when you start building a better business, it actually allows you to have more time and more resources and more money to actually be a better architect. And so,
absolutely, yeah, and being able to pick and choose, what you want to do.
Yeah.
Not just taking whatever comes through the door.
Yeah, that's why I say profit first.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
One personal habit or daily routine that contributes to your success.
This is a tough one. So this sounds really kind of silly, but one thing that I do, like one of the first things I do every day, is I make my bed. Like I get up and I make my bed. And I think, it Stanley McChrystal has a book out now where he talks about, like, he gives advice, for graduates, and like that is one of his biggest pieces of advice. And I think the idea that, okay, I've done something today, and if that's all I do is make my bed, it's still a good day. So I try to, it's gotten, I'm somewhat obsessive about it. Even like if I'm in a hotel, I'm making the bed. So it's just that has really become a habit.
The housekeepers like you a lot.
Yeah. I'm a super, favorite guest at any hotel. The other thing, I'm pretty avid reader, so I'm reading, every day. If it's even, I read a lot of fiction. I do a lot of nonfiction as well, but I'm always, reading usually before bed, which helps me get to sleep a lot of time, depending on what I'm reading. But that's something too. I always make sure that I have a book in some way, shape, or form with me.
As a technology guy, this is probably an easy one for you. Do you have a recommended app or an internet resource?
So yeah, the one app that I really like. So I'm doing a lot of writing, both for ArcSmarter and doing some freelance writing as well. But I found this app. It's called the Hemingway Editor. Have you heard of this, Mark?
I've heard of it, but I don't know it.
Yeah. So it basically will help you write more like Ernest Hemingway, and so. What it does is it highlights a lot of your own kind of idiosyncrasies as a writer. So it will go through and it pares things down. Like if you're using a passive voice, it will identify, is this sentence too complex? Are you using a passive voice? And it will kind of rank things and tell you, like, you've used it, four passive voices, you should really shoot for 3. But I found that it helps really clarify and what you're trying to say. So a lot of times I'll write something and then I'll paste it into the Hemingway editor and just see what it comes up. And then sometimes I take the suggestions and sometimes I don't. But that one's actually been really fun, just to see what it thinks of what I wrote.
Yeah, I love that. I actually didn't know it. I thought I knew it, but when you described it, I didn't know it. The Hemingway app seems like it's something that's. Is it working on artificial intelligence? Is it actually learning?
No, it doesn't learn.
Or
I think it
has programmed.
It's programmed, so it will go through and it looks at each sentence, and then it will evaluate them based on certain criteria. So it doesn't learn your writing style necessarily.
Yeah.
But I think too, coming from from the architecture where writing isn't always seen as something that needs to be clear and illustrate a point. Hemingway is great for removing a lot of the jargon out of your writing. So big words don't score well on Hemingway. Using architectural archi-speak, if you will.
Yeah, I could see that it would be a great training tool. That it would actually make you a better writer.
Yeah,
because it would point out all the things that you don't realize you're doing.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
and you may think that is, again, and it's coming from, it has a bias, obviously, but it makes your writing, I think, a lot more to the point and effective, because it is easier to digest. And maybe we could argue whether or not all writing should be easy to digest, but certainly when you're writing for an audience, when you're writing for blogs, that helps you get your message out.
Yeah.
And for me, writing about technical subjects, the more accessible I can make it, certainly the better.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, it's fun.
So you said that you read a lot. So you have a recommended book?
Oh yeah, I have a stack of them here actually. There's a couple. I was going through my bookshelves, trying to pick out some good ones. So there's one for business books. When I first started, again, thinking about okay, I do want to, open my own firm. I do want to start my own business. One book that I found to be really useful was The Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman.
Yeah. And
I started following his site before the book came out. And he would, basically read all of the business books and write on them. But I think The Personal MBA is great because you can go through and it really breaks things down, all aspects of a business. And he's not looking at a particular type of business, but business in general. So I think that's a great resource. Another book that I really liked that I read recently it's called Badass: Making Users Awesome, and it's by Kathy Sierra, who's a programmer. And the book definitely has a software perspective, but I think there's a lot you can take from it, for architects as well. And the idea is that, you really, whatever you're doing, nobody cares about what you're doing. They care about how what you do can make them, awesome. And so the book is a lot of fun to read because it's, there's a lot of pictures. I love pictures. So, but it's just really, really smart and clever. And I've marked it up like crazy. And then the other book, I actually, speaking of pictures, I really like, I'm going to kind of out myself as a geek here, but I really like comics and graphic novels. So I have a book, it's called Here by Richard McGuire. And it's a graphic novel where he looks at a particular site through all different times. So he'll, what happens in this site, a house is built in the 1920s, and then in particular rooms, different things are, it's actually really hard to describe, but if you see it, it makes perfect sense. And so he really just basically looks at this house through, hundreds of years. And it's just, it's a beautiful book. So
those are great recommendations. I'm going to have to put those on my list, but we'll also put them on the show notes. This is episode 175. So if anybody wants to go and get all of these resources, it's EntreArchitect.com/episode 175. Michael, what is one thing that an EntreArchitect can do today to build a better business for tomorrow?
I think one of the best things you can start is producing content of some sort. And I think you hear this more and more, but that every company is a media company, whether they know it or not. So I think that, and like you did, Mark, you just either through blogs or through videos or whatever, just producing something useful that people can consume in some way, shape, or form to help them do things better. I think as a foundation, for building a business, providing your usefulness, demonstrating it to an audience, like that's the best thing you can do, because maybe you just don't know what will come out of that. But I've found since starting ArcSmarter as a blog, it has grown in ways that I wouldn't necessarily have anticipated. Opportunities have come that I wouldn't have anticipated, and certainly wouldn't have come along if I hadn't started writing regularly.
Yeah, and it's interesting also how you grow yourself. By developing this, because you're sort of forced to learn things that you may not know about, which gives you more information to share. And it's sort of this cycle that the more you share, the more you grow, and the more you grow, the more you can share.
Exactly. And it feeds on itself.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say that it's easy. It takes.
It's not easy, and you don't have to build an entire platform either, like you and I are doing. Mm-hmm. You could just start a blog and write. Just share your knowledge, or I do guest posts. So anybody who wants to write a guest post for EntreArchitect, if it's for small firm architects and it's about business, leadership, or life, I'm interested. So you can write for us.
Yeah. Hey, I'll do it.
Yeah, you're in. Send me one.
Sounds good.
How about a parting piece of guidance for other entrepreneur architects, and then we'll wrap things up with how people can connect with you.
I think my one piece of guidance was just to be creative in your business. Like we are in a creative profession, but I think I certainly would encourage people to think creative about how they can be helpful and be of service. I think it doesn't necessarily, there's just a lot of opportunities out there, and I think that you can kind of express creativity in how you deliver your services and who you deliver your services to. So I would just encourage think creatively, again, in the business itself.
If our listeners wanted to connect with you online and wanted to say thank you or ask you some questions about what we talked about today, what's the best way to connect with you?
Sure. You can email me at michael@arcsmarter.com. If you go to ArcSmarter as well, you can sign up for my weekly newsletter. So I send out every Thursday. It's my Thursday top 5. So I send out 5 links, either stuff I've written or stuff I've found online that are of interest, to architects, engineers, and having to do with technology, workflow, process, all that stuff.
Sounds good. I'm going to head over there myself and sign up for that.
Hey, all right.
I'm interested in what you're doing over there. So, Michael, thank you very much for joining me here today and for sharing your knowledge here at EntreArchitect Podcast.
All right. Thanks, Mark. I really enjoyed it.
Me too. If you liked what Michael and I shared here today, complete show notes and a direct link to download this episode will be found at EntreArchitect.com/episode 175. And we'll have all the links there. Everything that we talked about will be there at EntreArchitect.com/episode 175. Go share that link with a friend. I want everybody to know what we're doing here at EntreArchitect. And if you want to be a featured guest here at the EntreArchitect podcast as an entrepreneur architect, connect with us. Connect with us anywhere on social media. Reach out to me, EntreArchitect, everywhere on the internet, or send us an email directly to podcast@EntreArchitect.com and let us know you want to be on the show. And don't forget to visit the website to learn more about the EntreArchitect Academy, our private online membership program built for you, small firm architects. That's you, small firm architect. You should check it out. Go to EntreArchitect.com. Right there on the homepage, learn all about it. You can build a better business. You can live a happier life. You can get more done. We can show you how. EntreArchitect.com. My name, if you might not know, is Mark R. LePage, and I am an entrepreneur architect, and I encourage you to focus and build a better business so you can be a better architect. Love, learn, and share what you know. Thanks for listening today. Have a great week.
Imagine earning continuing education credits while doing exactly what you're doing right now. Well, you can. Gable Media has revolutionized the way you earn your continuing education credits with a groundbreaking approach. Forget running around town and scouring the internet for credit-worthy courses. Fulfill your CE requirements effortlessly by listening to engaging podcasts just like the one you're listening to now. Our podcasts are designed to educate, entertain, and inspire, all in a user-friendly environment. But wait, there's more. Architects, Gable Media is also approved as an AIA continuing education services provider. Upon completion, we handle everything, from reporting your hours directly to the AIA to storing your certificates in your personal Gable Media profile for your self-reporting needs. So follow the link in the show notes and start earning your credits in the most innovative and entertaining way possible with Gable Media.
Attention architects and creative minds. Get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark R. LePage, founder of EntreArchitect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand podcast, where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.